What is up? Welcome back to the Tomahawk Talk podcast. We're back with another injury report. Wouldn't you believe it? We've also got Brady Penn with us again, newly PR associate for the Gwinnett Stripers. Just told us off air he's still going to be doing stuff for 680, and you said you were going to be at 45 of the
About,
home
about
games.
yeah, about half the home games this year I'll be working.
So we'll still get our favorite Brady tweets, and maybe he won't cause any commotion with the Acuna stuff.
Try my best. We're
Yeah.
getting closer and closer to the contract year, so I gotta chill.
Brady, man, how's everything going?
Things have been great, man. Kind of in that transition from everything being football oriented to baseball. And as soon as we get into baseball, the Braves just smack you in the face with, oh, here's an injury here. Oh, that wasn't enough for you. Here's another one. Oh, wait, here's another one. Here's a guy that's actually okay, but he did have a big injury this offseason that we didn't know about. Like, it feels like the Braves are just continue to pay and have not run out of like injury equity when it comes from the 2021 World Series run. Like it just feels like shot after shot. And even in the years 22 and 23 where they were like relatively healthy, you still had the injuries then. Like you had Freed, especially all the time getting hurt. You had guys like right before the postseason pitching wise going down. And now in 24, 25, and to start 26, you just have arms continually going down. You got position guy. We got a shortstop sign that fell on ice and broke his hand. Like this stuff's getting comical at this point if you're a Braves fan. But I mean, you can't complain about baseball. Even if everybody on the roster is hurt, you can't complain about baseball being back. And it's exciting to see what's going to come out of spring training. Like who's going to be that young player that makes the roster or makes the roster quickly into the season and makes an impact like we've seen in the last few years with Drake Baldwin, with Michael Harris, with Spencer Strider, all these other guys that the Braves. It's funny, kind of just goes to show you how the pipeline and farm system rankings are kind of, I don't want to say BS, but kind of BS because the Dodgers just always have the top ranked farm system and are able to pawn off these number one prospects every year for new guys. But then you got the Braves who are always middle of the pack farm system, but seemingly have a rookie of the year favorite every season. So it'll be exciting to see which new guy emerges, and it'll be exciting to hopefully see a healthy season from the likes of Ronald Acuna Jr. and Austin Riley and have the gang kind of all healthy together, at least from a position player standpoint for the first time since 2023.
Absolutely. We'll touch on it. We'll touch on the Waldrep news, but we'll kind of start off. Taking the new job with Gwinnett. How did that come about? How did you kind of get into the inner workings of that? What was, I guess, what is something you're looking forward to with that as well? And kind of give us some details about that.
Yeah, so I kind of had my eye on this position because about a year ago, I was finishing up my first season working at Georgia Tech football, which I had worked at the last 2 years, and was a really great experience. I just had my last day on Friday, but late November last year, kind of I think right before the UGA game, actually, I saw a posting for this role with the Stripers, but I, was still pretty new to my job at Tech. I decided I wasn't going to apply yet, and in a year's time if the job became available again, I was going to go for it. And so, fast forward another season at Georgia Tech, had the year doing post game reporting with 680 under my belt. And I was actually in Maine with my fiance visiting her family. And I saw a notification when I woke up from like LinkedIn that Dave Lazat, my new boss, who's an awesome guy, and I can't say enough about how much he helped in the process, he had posted like the opening on LinkedIn. And so I immediately applied and emailed him that I applied and told him I'd love to interview. We got an interview set up a couple days later. That was a Saturday. We interviewed on a Monday, and then he interviewed for a second time a couple weeks after that. And then about a week later, he told me that I had gotten the job, and I had had luckily, some positive reviews from my references. Thank God they didn't say that I'm just a complete screw up. But no, I'm really excited for the gig. And I think what I'm most excited for is seeing the difference. At this point, I've worked in a Power Four facility for a couple of years. I've been in Major League Clubhouse. I've been even at the Super Bowl and seen kind of how these NFL media operations run. But to see minor league baseball, kind of like what I was telling you guys in the pre-show, like it's craziness, and you got to do a whole lot of different things. So I'm excited and eager to tackle that challenge. I'm ready to see kind of what it's like for minor league baseball, and I think it'll also be cool in two aspects. One, seeing the up and coming guys like a J.R. Ritchie, like a Caminiti, if he's in Gwinnett later on this year. Those type of guys, seeing them come up because I know the guys before me. I talked to a few of them, and they saw Drake Baldwin come up through Gwinnett, and they talked about how they knew he was going to be a special player. They've seen a Michael Harris, but on the other side of that, injuries like we talked about do happen, and there will be guys that come up rehabbing that I am familiar with, that I have talked to in the major league clubhouse, and this position allows me an even better chance to talk to them in a smaller, more intimate setting where I can get to know these players a little bit better too. Like if we have, Waldrep coming up through a rehab, or Sean Murphy coming up to rehab for the third year in a row in Gwinnett. So I think that'll be really cool to see the major leaguers that have to work their way back up and spend a week down there, get to pick their brain a little bit, and then also the young guys. But I'm really excited to be working full time in baseball. The 680 role is really cool. That was one of my side gigs and will continue to be, but just being full focus on baseball for 6 months is going to be a lot of fun. And shout out once again to Dave Lazat, who's the play-by-play. Feel like he does everything for the Stripers. If you know this guy, he does like a billion different things. He coordinates the travel, the hotels, all these different things for the Stripers. He's awesome, and I'm really looking forward to getting to work with him.
So you mentioned just a little bit briefly about kind of having some of the major league guys, some of the minor league prospects coming up. Um, a two-parter here. One, are you kind of, I don't want to put you in a pickle, but are you kind of looking forward more towards seeing these prospects, or are you looking forward to, doing like an interview with like a Sandy Leone, kind of picking the brains of these, former veteran guys, and just kind of doing that?
I think it'll be really cool to talk to the young guys for one, because a lot of them are right close to me in age. A lot of them at this point are a couple years younger, to be honest, because I am 24 years old, and it'll be cool, kind of similar age, probably similar interest type of guys. And one of the pieces of advice I got from a guy named Jack Johnson, who held this position 2 years before me. He's like, you have the benefit of being a young guy. Like, just be a dude. Like, just don't be tense. Don't be like nervous. Don't be whatever. Just go up and have a conversation with them, and they'll appreciate it, and they'll give you some crap, but it'll also be a good time. And I'm really excited for that. And then also, kind of what I was saying a minute ago, you'll see guys inevitably that end up being in Atlanta for at least 5 or 6 years and make an impact on the Atlanta Braves and the tradition that is the Atlanta Braves. And it'll be really cool to like look back years down the road and be like, hey, I remember talking to that guy, seeing that guy every day in the clubhouse in AAA, and like I knew he was going to be a really good hitter. I knew that this dude was going to be a problem on the mound at the major league level. So I think that's going to be really cool for years to come, and then forming those relationships this season.
Oh yeah. And the second part, I completely forgot it mid sentence. Who is one of the young guys you are looking forward to? Because for me, like, I'm not gonna lie, like, I'm not very familiar with the minor leagues. You hear a little bit. If you're familiar, with being on social media and stuff, you hear the Drake Baldwins, you hear the Caminettis, but you also have guys like Lucas Braun and Blake Burhalter. Who are some of those guys you're looking forward to watching who might not be as well known, but
Yeah, I actually am really excited to talk to J.R. Ritchie. I know that's one of the more well-known, maybe more like a lame answer, but I like talking to the pitchers the most. That's one thing I learned being in the clubhouse last year, is that the pitchers usually offer the most insight. They're maybe the smartest guys. Them and the catchers are maybe the smartest guys on the field, and especially like you listen to a Chris Sale and just how he goes about his business and his process, and like even on a good night, like how critical he is of himself. We'll have a night where Chris goes like six and a third of 2 runs, and he'll come into the media room and he'll be like, I effing suck tonight. There was this pitch that I missed for ball four in the fourth that like I really would never miss that pitch, and I got to be better. And it's like, dude, you had a great start. Like, I think that's a really cool aspect of talking to pitchers, and just like how analytical they are and how deep they think about the game. So I'm excited to kind of see it from a really young guy's perspective. Even I talked to Hurston Waldrep, the little bit that he was in Atlanta last year, but getting, more time, especially beginning of the year around a J.R. Ritchie or even a Caminiti will be really cool, I think.
Ryan, I didn't want to steal your spotlight.
No, you're good, buddy. If I'm being honest, I don't know enough to ask, so just keep it rolling.
um, what is like? So, how is your schedule now looking with the minor leagues and doing the 680 on the side? Because I know you mentioned too about having like the seven on, 10 off, or something like that. How is
Yeah,
that schedule looking?
Yeah, minor league schedules are interesting because a lot of the times you'll have one homestand, but the homestand is 6 games long, and you'll see the same team 6 days in a row, and the times will change like slightly. You'll have a 6:05 game 2 nights in a row, then you have a 7:15 game 2 nights in a row, and then the next day it's a 12:05. So it changes a little bit more than major leagues, where pretty much throughout the week you're most of the time a 7:20 first pitch, and if you're not, it's a early afternoon. But I think it'll be really cool. I think it'll be a grind for sure because even at the major league level, when you do have a 6 game, 10 game homestand, it's like you have a new opponent coming in and there's like a little bit of a freshness about it. I'm interested to see what it's like having 6 games in a row against the same team with no break in between. Because even a 7 game playoff series or a 5 game playoff series, you've got the off days, right? But in minor league baseball, it's not the same way. You just got 6 days in a row that you're just letting it rip, and then you get the off day on day 7. So that'll be really cool. And then when it comes to my schedule with the Braves and the Stripers, honestly, you won't see a ton of me at Truist the first 2 months or so of the season. That's where there are a lot of conflicts. And then on top of that, I'm getting married April 18th. So from April 17th to the 26th, I'll be out of commission for both squads. I'll be getting married, and then I'll be in the Dominican for about a week. So I'll have a little bit of a schedule conflict there. But the other thing with that is like the Braves and Stripers play a lot of coinciding home games the first 2.5 months, and then like the second half of the year, there are very rarely conflicts. So you'll see a lot more of me post All Star break with Atlanta than you will in April and May.
So what I'm hearing is you're going to the Dominican to scout up our next shortstop.
Exactly, exactly. Look, my soon to be wife thinks it's a honeymoon, but we're actually going to scout the next big 15-year-old Capalola style.
There we go. Um, all right, so news today breaks. Waldrep, what is it, loose bodies or something in his
And something like
elbow?
that is no ligament issues, which is the big relief there.
So your up and down guy basically in Waldrop is gone. Spencer Schwellenbach is probably done for the year. The Braves pretty much needed a starter, and have not gone out and done that yet. And now they've had two of their guys go down. They pretty much addressed that your starting rotation is going to be Sale, Strider, Raylo, and Grant. And then you're probably going to assume Bryce Elder takes that fifth spot. This offseason, Alex was very adamant about depth, Swiss Army guys, and saying, like, we're looking for a playoff starter. The money's there. We can do this, but hasn't really done anything on that part of the end. Uh, as much as you can say, how frustrating is it in your point of view? Because for us, it's very frustrating. And just what are your thoughts on all the injuries and stuff?
Yeah, I think the injuries. It's funny, like so it kind of feels like the baseball gods kind of telling the Braves like you didn't do what you were supposed to, so now you're gonna really feel that you didn't do what you're supposed to. And I think that Alex and the Braves had a really good offseason had they signed a starting pitcher. It's a solid offseason having not signed a starting pitcher, but you did get Suarez in that setup role. But it kind of feels like, in that regard, one step forward, 2 steps back because Joe Jimenez probably won't see him this year, at least for a long time, won't see him. And it seems like, for all intents and purposes, he's seen his best days as a Brave in the past, and no matter what, whether he comes back or not. But you kept Hasong, which is really good. You signed Dubon as a depth piece, who will be the opening day starting shortstop with Kim down, and then you got Yastrzemski in the outfield as well, and you have a full season of Profar, who will be doing some DHing, which you might not be super fond of, but he'll be playing some left field too. So for the most part, outside of the starting rotation, you did a good job nailing down that depth. You did a good job keeping quality and value hand in hand, but it feels like this is a couple years running where the Braves really did not add a starter in free agency. The only guy in like the last 4 or 5 years feels like the Braves have added as a starter is Chris Sale, which to Alex's credit was a much questioned move at the time with all of his injury problems and his age, but it's turned out brilliantly and hopefully we get a great and healthy year 3 from Chris Sale. But other than that, I mean, the last big off-season pitching addition in the starting rotation was Charlie Morton, probably entering the 2021 season. So it feels like the Braves are, for better or worse, very confident in building guys up in-house, which they have done, over the course of the last 7, 8 years with a Max Fried, with a Spencer Strider, even for a year or two, and Ian Anderson, like these type of guys, I feel like they can pump out. And even no matter how you feel about Bryce Elder, he's given the Braves a ton of innings over the last few years. Like even a lower tier example like that, with no disrespect to Bryce. So I feel like the Braves strategy has clearly been like, we're going to focus on guys in house. And I guess you could count Raylo too as a starter addition, but I kind of add an asterisk to that because you could always see a move to the pen and people have kind of been inevitably waiting for that. But I think the Braves should have signed a starter. I think that the real frustration for a Braves fan to be, even if you have to overpay a couple million, like a Chris Bassett, who got 18 million on a 1 year deal, there's probably a lockout coming next year. From everything that I've heard, there's a lockout that is coming. From
Yep.
everything even the fans have heard, there's a lockout coming. So why not spend that $18 million, whether it's Alex, whether it's Liberty Media, like, and I'm not casting stones here. I'm saying if I was, just a Braves fan sitting at home, these are not even my personal opinions, but if I was someone sitting at home, like, why not spend the money when this could be the year that you really need to go for it, with Acuna's contract, you know, getting shorter and shorter, and you don't know what the status of that is going to be. I know that my friends at 680 have talked about floating the trade rumors, and the Braves don't feel like they can re-sign him, and then you've got this lockout that's coming. I just don't think it makes the most sense to not grab a starter. And maybe they are working on something. I wouldn't hold my breath thinking that they're pulling a Tarek Skubal trade or anything like that. But they've looked at Giolito supposedly, a guy that could at least has experience in getting innings. But it feels like with Bassett and Zach Gallen, those were two that Braves fans would have been really happy with having as their 3 or 4 guy. And neither one of them are going to be wearing a Braves uniform. So you have to wonder, is it just an in-house thing? Are they that confident in Waldrep or J.R. Ritchie? Do the plans change now? Are they going to try and make a trade with Waldrep going down? What's the timeline for him? There are a lot of questions that are going to have to be answered about the starting pitching. And I think the short answer to the pitching thing is the Braves front office feels as if, with everybody healthy, at least in the field, they're mostly healthy. The offense should be the strength of this team. And even if they can just get league average starting pitching, they've got a good enough bullpen and a good enough lineup to where they should be able to slug their way to leads and eventually wins because the bullpen holds it down in the back end of games. Will that strategy be fruitful? We will see this season, but it feels like that's kind of the consensus of the ownership and AA and everybody in the organization, is that they're going to lean on the bats and the relievers and hope that, especially the top half of the rotation can get the job done.
Yeah, and I mean, one thing that is going to royally piss me off is if they sign Giolito for, call it 15 million, and they couldn't dish out the other, whatever that is, 4 million, 3.5 million for Bassett, and with no season probably coming next year, and with 80 or 90 million coming off the books next year too. I think that's just total complacency there in my opinion. But Ryan is our resident pediatrician, so he can tell us a little bit more in depth about what is going on with Hurston Waldrep right now.
Again, not a pediatrician. If I was a pediatrician, I'd be able to pay and sponsor the entire podcast. So, definitely not a pediatrician. But kind of the same thing with Schwelly. You got loose bodies, or more or less it's either cartilage or it's bone spurs in the elbow. So, luckily there's no damage to the ligament. Just kind of depends where the loose bodies are at in the elbow. Because obviously, if he's having discomfort, he's having pain at some point when he's releasing the ball, more than likely, and getting into elbow extension. So, sucks. He's gonna miss a decent chunk of the season, which sucks. So, I don't know what more to talk about with these injuries, but
The other thing that I do want to add, like, to, I guess, sort of for the fans, play devil's advocate here for AA, for Liberty, for whoever is making the final say on these moves, is the Braves, for all we know, could have been like, hey, Chris, dude, we'll give you 20 million to come here to Atlanta, and he just didn't want to play for the Braves. Or Zach Gallen maybe was playing hardball with Arizona all along and didn't really want to leave Arizona and wanted to see how the market played out. You never know. I don't think Braves fans were expecting a, Ranger Suarez. I feel like the Braves, truthfully, I don't have any information telling me this. I don't have, like, this is just my gut feeling. I think that the Braves were trying their hardest to get a Freddie Peralta trade done. And then once Peralta got traded to the Mets, I feel like they weren't able to pivot to plan B quick enough. But we don't know if guys just might not have wanted to come here. The Braves might have been too late, too deep into negotiations with other teams for some of these guys. So you never know. But that's my take. Is I think that it was Peralta or bust for the starting rotation, and they obviously got gypped by the Mets.
I think somebody told me that there was something. I think maybe it was a tweet or it was a post or something. They had basically had a deal done or something, but he wouldn't sign an extension. I think.
Yeah.
I could be mishearing. I could be
I
thinking
think
of
I saw
somebody
the
else.
same thing from somewhere, but I'm not sure what the source was.
Ryan just posted your Austin Riley breakdown. So let's talk about that. So Austin has been out the past 2 years now, I believe, playing less than
Yeah.
120 games in both
Yeah.
years.
Went down in August back in 24, and then last year on and off injuries, especially in the late summer.
So very subpar from what we expect from him. Talk to us a little bit about that, Ryan. About kind of what you think what he has worked on, I guess, and some improvements with his swing and stuff too.
well, the only thing he worked on was stopping the hip slide. So basically, what he was doing is when he was going to load onto his backside instead of internally rotating into the back hip, he was just stacking everything on his leg. So when you stack everything on your leg, you just when you go forward, when you stride forward with your front leg, everything's going to crash onto your front side. When you do that, your head's going to move, and when your head moves, the ball speeds up. You can't read it. You don't have as much time to make good decisions. So everybody's wondering why Austin Riley's chasing a slider 500 feet out of the strike zone. It's because he can't fucking see the ball. Kind of the same thing with Michael Harris last year. So, from the batting practice swings, and take it for what it's worth, in batting practice, nobody ever goes all out in BP unless it's Ronald trying to hit the scoreboard out there every once in a while. He looked fine in BP. He looked very under control. His head wasn't moving a whole lot, and that was the one thing he really wanted to try to work on, which I'm glad they finally figured it out because I saw it. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I saw this last year. So, that's all I'm saying.
Just toot it. Just toot your own horn at this point.
Simplify. Sometimes
We also got news too that Profar had, what was it, a herniated disc?
Oh man.
Yeah, something in the off season.
He had a hernia.
A hernia. Okay, so I guess you would probably be the one to tell us. Did they even know about this, or are they playing it off like they didn't know about this? Is PR better either way? I guess if they play it off or if they don't.
I think for last year, as many doomers and gloomers that we all were because of how crappy the Braves were, it's probably a good thing they kept it under wraps. But I'm sure they knew going into the end of the season, but
Yeah.
there's no way.
Yeah, I agree with Ryan. I think that they definitely knew, and I think that if it was something serious, they might have made a more extreme move, but that could have been one of the reasons that pushed them towards signing Yaz as well, is to have that corner outfield piece, even if he is also up there in age, kind of like Jurickson is, and also to provide that flexibility of, maybe if we know he's coming off this injury, we'll be able to give him more DH at bats, and it could even be a three-way thing where they're like, oh shoot, Sean Murphy is hurt again. We were going to DH him, but now we got a DH Profar, and we don't want the load of him playing the outfield as well. So we'll put Yaz out in left field a lot to start the year, and we'll DH Prof. But we won't really know, I guess, until the games get going and we see where guys are slotted at. But I don't think they definitely knew about this, and I don't think that it's a big issue going into the season. And as for Austin, I honestly, so I'm like a huge Austin Riley truther, and I think that Riley, his struggles when healthy have been overblown. I think he's always been a peaks and valleys hitter, and I think that 2021 was like 98th percentile outcome for Austin in terms of like average and consistent at bat to at bat production. I think he's a like a lot of the rest of the Braves hitters, he goes through very, very hot streaks and he can go through some low lows. And he is going to have some high strikeout numbers like Olson, like Acuna, like Ozzy, like, but he's going to go through some really hot moments. And I think that Austin, especially last year, like going into the summer, it felt like he really was hitting a groove to me. So like May, the month of May, I felt like Austin was really, really good. I remember him having that 2 home run game on Sunday Night Baseball against the Dodgers, and that's when it felt like it started to click. But then he just couldn't really get consistency going with these injuries, and it felt like it was just multiple different nagging injuries for him. And then season got shut down at the Speedway Classic, and that was it for 2-7. But I do expect him to have a really good year, and I expected him to have one last year, and I think that he was going to have not an Austin Riley year, but a good year, a solid year if the injuries hadn't popped up. So I fully still expect a 30 home run, 90 RBI type of year from Riley if he plays 150 plus.
Yeah. We talked to Brandon too, and uh, he mentioned a couple different dates basically, but the one that really stuck out in his mind, and I wanted to get your point of view on this too, was the San Francisco series when they got swept and had the lead in like every game. He's, and I think Grant McCauley actually said, because it was after the Diamondbacks 10-run comeback or something.
It was the one in San Fran, right? It was like the 8-game losing streak for the Braves
Yeah.
back in June.
Yep. Grant said, "Well, if you thought this was rock bottom, I think we hit bedrock." But what was something you maybe saw in the club, if you can even say, in the clubhouse, or something that you were kind of like, okay, these guys they're not doing too great, between the years right now.
Honestly, what I saw even through the struggles was the opposite of that, which could be a reason for optimism for Braves fans. Is like even in the tough spells, and I guess it all depends how you look at it, because some people might be like, oh, they need to be more pissed about losing or something. But I even, after some rough losses, and even when they'd be going through a cold stretch, things would be pretty chill in the clubhouse and guys would be pretty even keeled. And when we would talk to specific players, they would acknowledge like, hey, I'm not playing good enough. The team's not playing good enough, but we can't get this all back in one game. And we're not going to do any favors for ourselves by like getting down and like pressing, which I do think that was a lot of what last season was after the 0-7 start, really for the rest of the year, was just pressing and just trying really hard. And I think that to add on to that with Tim Hires last year, I actually think Coach Hires, for the guys he got through to, got really good results. And I think that his hitting approach works. But I think for a lot of our guys, that wasn't the approach that they were used to. And old habits die hard. And you started to see guys come around on the philosophy of Hires later on in the year. But when they were going through these tough spells, like these guys, they're pros. They were not freaking out. There were no nights where they're like, hey, you know, nobody's coming in the clubhouse. Guys are, crashing out in there. There were nights where, like, if they lose in extras, or like after the Diamondbacks game where the Diamondbacks had like the 8-run comeback, where media didn't go in the clubhouse because the guys probably are heated and not wanting to talk. But like when we were allowed in the clubhouse after some of those tough losses, there was never a sense in here of like, man, the vibes are dead. And especially when the Braves kind of hit that little hot streak in August and September, like it felt like the team was actually in a really good place to me, where it was like they know that they're not going to the playoffs this year, but it's very important to them to finish strong and to end on a strong note going into next season, because they know that the roster they have is capable of being a contending team, and that they just got off to too slow of a start and couldn't get a consistent run going until it was too late. But that was an answer we got from multiple guys, was like, it's important that we keep playing hard, that we finish strong, that we keep playing together as a team. And I think that a lot of it, just from my perspective, was very positive and very encouraging for Braves fans in the locker room, even in the midst of struggles.
Yeah, and you touched on it too. That little hot streak they went on. Was there even like the slightest of difference that they were like, "Hey, we're out of it. We can." You could even see on the field they were playing a little bit looser. They were joking around a little bit more, having fun. I mean, hell, Matt Olson got ejected one game. I mean, what and I'm sure they probably knew about Snick going too. I'm sure that was probably a closed door meeting at some point during the season. But was there even a shift in that stretch, or were they just pretty just flatline the whole year?
I don't know if it was like a visible thing to us, but I do think like, once they were eliminated from contention, like they were able to play more free and just like play their game. And I think part of it also is what I was saying with like coming around on Hires' philosophy. But really when I saw like a turn for the Braves and like the vibes got a little bit more chill and it was a little less heavy in the clubhouse was around the time that they got Jerks and Profar back, and they acquired Hassan Kim. Those two guys coming into the locker room and having the presence that they did in the lineup seemed to, loosen guys up a lot. And I think that it did a lot of really good things, especially like I remember the night that Jerkson came back and had, the bomb to right field that he absolutely crushed. Um, I think that everybody in the locker room, there was no sense of like, damn, where was this? Like, you could have helped us the first 81 games. There wasn't any of that. It was, hey, it's awesome to have you back. Let's work. Like, this is great. Like, we're happy to have you here. And they had his back. And I think that for better or worse, whatever you feel about the Braves or any of their players, or if they need a Jock Peterson type or whatever these narratives I see on Twitter are, the one thing that you can't say about the Braves is that they are not a together clubhouse and that they like, it's a very, it sounds cliche, but it's a very like family type of locker room and like a very much close knit group. And I do think that that can be good and bad because when one or two guys are really, really slumping hard, the rest of the guys feel it because they want so hard for their teammates to be successful and they kind of try to press to make up the ground for that guy. But in the same light, I think that this locker room and this team, when one or two guys get really, really going, it opens it up for the rest of them and it instills confidence in the other guys. So I think they're they're just a very the camaraderie in the Braves clubhouse is very, very high, and I think it got even higher after Profar and Kim came into the mix in July.
Up and down. Do you think this is a better team heading into opening day? Take any injuries you want to into consideration that could happen in the future too. Do you think this is a better lineup, rotation, pitching staff heading into this year than it was last year?
I do think so, and maybe it's because I'm thinking back on Profar being suspended 5 games in, and it's essentially like he wasn't part of the lineup for that entire first half, and they were shorthanded in left field. It felt like last year. I think the Braves kind of got like the last offseason, I felt like they kind of got caught with their pants down in the offseason and didn't really have like a firm direction of where they were going, or they kind of, I
Well, they
think
were
the
cutting the
Braves,
luxury tax.
well, yeah, and I think it was that. And I think it was also,
Had to buy a
hey,
parking
hey,
lot.
I think it was a lot of, well, we had all these guys injured last year. Like that's what it was. We don't really need to make a whole lot of additions. We're getting additions from injuries, so we'll be good. And I think this year they probably still thought the same thing of, hey, we had a lot of injury luck not go our way last year. We'll get some guys back. But if we can get those guys back at the level they produce and bring in some new guys like a Suarez, like retaining Hassan Kim, which in a way sort of is like getting a new shortstop because you only did have him for a month and a half or whatever it was, and it looked really good. And then you add Dubon, and then you add Yastrzemski. Like, hey, we're getting guys back from injury, but we're also going to add some depth to this thing. So I think that yeah, I really do, especially the fact that there was no way going into opening day to know that Iggy was going to be the Iggy that he was the first 2 months last season, but he showed that he was able to get it back and having him and Suarez as the two guys in the back end of that bullpen, taking a load off of guys like Lee, like Bummer, to where they're not going to be in quite as many high leverage spots with Suarez. I think that's going to make the bullpen better. I think the bullpen's definitely in a better spot. I mean, we had Hector Neris coming in opening day last year and getting DFA'd shortly after. I think the rotation probably in a similar spot, maybe a little better because you're not dealing with filling the hole of Max Fried anymore, because that was the big thing last year that it felt like the Braves had to adjust to, was not having that number two, number one type starter in Fried and adjusting from there. They didn't have to do that this offseason. And then I think the lineup is better because you have a shortstop now. You don't have Nick Allen, who was great with the glove but not great hitting. You don't have him playing shortstop. You've got Acuna back in that lineup, whether he hits leadoff, whether he hits third. We see what Weiss's philosophy with that is. I know Snit was fine jumping him around wherever, getting him more RBI opportunities. You have Olson and Riley locked and ready to go. And I think that he'll continue to be a streaky player, but even what we saw in the second half out of Michael Harris was very encouraging to me. And I had some in-depth conversations with Michael last year about how he changed his hand placement and how he had his hands from down here to up here by his head, and it did a lot for his reaction speed and a lot for his pitch recognition. And I think that Mike is always going to be an up and down hitter, but he's always going to be a plus player with the glove. But I think that he's going to have a really good offensive year. And if you can get Ozzy closer to what his career average has been than last year, like, there are some ifs here, but I think, in a long-winded answer to your question, yes, I think that the team is in a better spot than they were heading into San Diego Game 1 last season.
I agree. I think you basically have holes. I mean, every team does. Every team. There's always room to improve.
Unless you can pay to cover your holes and give deferred contracts everywhere.
Every team has holes somewhere. But I think it's just where you have them. And I think a lot of, if they were healthy, of course, that's always the narrative, then you're fine. But I think a lot of it, too, is, you're going to try to have to replace the production from Ozuna. Now, I don't think he's necessarily the same hitter. Who knows what that hip looks like. Bullpen, I believe, is 10 times better, especially what we saw from Dylan Dodd last year. I guess whatever you want to make a bummer being healthy.
Kinley back.
Kinley's
he
back.
Was good.
It's just the lineup and being not hurt.
I don't think. I mean, just Acuna alone to me just makes such a big difference, and just having him in that top of the order is just going to be so great. Because I mean, last year, Jerickson, you got him. Okay, he'll be our leadoff hitter for 2 months until Ronald comes back. Oh, well, he's popped. Okay, now we got to put Michael Harris in the leadoff spot, who's not a leadoff type of hitter. Now let's put Ozzy in the leadoff spot. Let's put Eli White in the leadoff spot. And you didn't really have anybody to fill that spot. And I do think that is where Ronald's going to be. I know we saw him in the third and the fourth a little bit last year. I think Ronald's going to be hitting first. And I just think that changes the mentality of a starting pitcher facing the Braves so much. Just that one player in the box that can start the game, and one bad pitch makes it a 1-0 ball game, or one walk can put a guy on second base immediately a couple pitches in. And I just think like the psychology of a starting pitcher with 13 at the top of the batting order is so much different.
Yeah. One more thing from me. I'll turn it over to Ryan if he's got anything else, and we'll get you out of here. Really appreciate you coming on, man.
Yes, sir.
Reaction and, I guess, expectations and overall thoughts on the Walt Weiss hire.
I think that Walt's a guy that I didn't really talk to. You don't really spend a lot of time as media talking to assistant coaches unless you're like a Mark Bowman or a David O'Brien who's been there and like really knows these guys. And for me, being a young guy, I didn't really spend a whole lot of time talking to assistants. I mean, I screwed it up bad enough talking to Snit and causing a problem with Acuna early on in the year. But no, I think that managerial moves in MLB are like such a complex thing, because there are a lot of people that are happy with it because it's in-house. There are a lot of people that aren't happy with it because it's in-house, and because a lot of people want to stray away from the way that Snit managed games. And I think that people just assume that Walt Weiss is going to manage games the exact way that Snit did because he was with Snit, because he's friends with Snit. But for me at least, I'm going to wait and see because Walt Weiss, we haven't seen him manage since he managed a really terrible Rockies team, really didn't have much of a chance to do a whole lot of good over there. Now he has a real roster, now he has real players. And I'm interested to see what the differences are between him and Snitker because I'm sure that there are things that he took from Snit that he'd say, "Hey, I like that. I like the way he does this with the guys. I like the way he keeps the locker room this way." And there are probably things where he's like, "Oh, I would probably go about this a little bit different than Brian Snitker did." So I think it'll be interesting. And I don't know if I would set a general expectation on Weiss himself, but for the team, like I don't see if they stay healthy, which is, who knows what they do based off the last 2 years. But if they stay healthy, this team absolutely is capable of winning the NL East and, going to an NLCS and facing off against the Los Angeles Dodgers. This team is good enough. I don't look at the Phillies and Mets and say, "Oh yeah, they're a step ahead of the Braves. They're better than the Braves," especially with Wheeler being hurt in Philly and some of the guys that they lost in New York. You've got Lindor having hamate bone surgery to start the year. You lost Alonso, you lost Nemo. I know you added some guys, but you got Bo Bichette playing third, which I think is a disaster in the making. You've got Marcus
See, I'm
Semien.
not the only one.
Yeah.
Thank you,
I
Brady.
mean, it's bad, dude. I don't think that's going to go well, but they are hoping that his bat makes it a moot point. But Marcus Semien, I feel like his best days are behind him. So I look at the Mets, even with Freddie Peralta, which is a great addition, and I don't think this team's better than the Braves. And I think that the Braves and Mets, even last season, were going in different directions the second half of the year. The Braves started to finally play good and started to get on their P's and Q's, and the Mets absolutely imploded and missed the playoffs right alongside the Braves. And then you look at Philly, and it feels like they've kind of missed their window. And now you've got Bryce Harper with friction with the front office, and he's openly saying he did not like what the GM had to say about him not being elite. You got Trey Turner, who's into his 30s now. You re-sign old JT Realmuto. Your biggest off-season move was probably bringing in Adolis Garcia. So it doesn't feel like the Phillies made a ton of strides off-season. I'd say that the Braves had the best off-season out of the three teams. We could talk about starting pitching all we want. I think the Braves, out of the three NL East contenders, had the most productive offseason and added the most talent, or at least had the best margin of added talent versus lost talent between the three teams. So I think that this team, the expectation should be take back the NL East and win it again after a 2-year hiatus. That's the expectation that I would put. And as for Walt, I think that we'll wait and see. I don't know if he'll be great. I don't know if he will be bad. I have no clue. I don't know Walt. I was a kid when he was managing the Rockies, but I am interested to see like how it goes and how the players respond. From what I have heard, the players do really like Walt Weiss. So.
Yeah, that was me and Ryan was a lone man on an island when Walt got hired. We were all not in favor of it.
Yeah, y'all freaking crucified me on the podcast.
But then, once you saw all the other additions to the coaching staff come in, Hefner.
Yeah, I think Hefner's going to be huge.
Yeah. And then they got the dudes from the Twins, which at this point I'm convinced they brought the medical staff from the Twins too. At this point. But no, once the players started saying that they loved him and they brought in some more analytical guys and it started growing on me.
Yeah, I think it's natural for everybody to have wanted a fresh voice, fresh face, but really, like, who are the Braves going to bring in? They weren't going to get an Aaron Boone, which I'm not sure would have even been upgrade. They weren't. They weren't going to take a swing on Mark DeRosa with this core who hasn't managed an MLB team. There were a lot of guys that were either Skip Schumacher. I have no idea if he's better than Walt Weiss or not, but I think that a lot of people just really wanted a fresh outside voice, but didn't really give Walt Weiss much of a chance upon his hiring. And I think that, he has the potential to be a really, really good manager. And he has the vote of confidence from the players, the front office, and from Snit himself. So we will see how it goes.
Ryan, you got anything? Good. All right, we'll close it out with the last question we ask all our guests. We might have asked you this last time you were on, actually.
I remember some sort of last question. I remember I kind of had to dodge and weave. Let's see what it is.
No, no, it's not that one. You know the escape rooms. I'm sure you're familiar with those.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, you got to pick one guy from the 2025 roster. Who are you picking and why?
Strider. I think, I mean, he's like such a, like, I don't know Spencer personally. Like, I've had conversations with him about baseball and, in media sessions, but just everything I do know about Spencer is like, he's such a, like, almost like a mad genius, like just so eccentric, but you can tell very smart and very detail oriented. And I feel like Spencer would be the type to like just catch all the like random small details in an escape room that take you 15 minutes to find. And I feel like he would do it like really casually.
See, everybody that I have not said you can't pick Strider, pick Strider.
Yeah.
No, that's a really good guess.
If I had to give a second answer to this, let me think for just a second. If I had to give a second answer, I honestly think I might would still go with a pitcher. No, honestly, I would say I would say Sean Murphy. I think Murph would probably be my second guess there.
Yeah. I think was it Brandon said Pierce Johnson, which was way out of left field for us. We were like Pierce Johnson,
I could kind of see Pierce. I could see that.
but Brady, man, thank you once again for coming back on. We'll have you back on again, I'm sure at some point. But really appreciate you coming on and dedicating some time to us.
Yes, sir, boys. Always a pleasure.
Once again, thanks to Brady Penn for coming on and talking some ball with us. One of my favorite guys from Twitter last year. Just kind of with that Grant McCauley kind of vibe. Just like wasn't really an asshole, but was kind of like your fans' point of view more than like a Bowman. All due respect to Bowman, I know he writes. He gets paid to be how he is. But that
Don't hate on Bo, man. Come on.
I don't.
Dang.
It's just me personally. I feel like Grant and Brady are more your kind of younger fans, kind of more vibe. But
I like
that
Bo.
could just. I do too. I love Bo. I think he's fine. I think the Didier Fuentes stuff was, kind of probably could have hung that up a little earlier, but. Hurston Waldrep, we got to talk about it now. This team is a fucking train wreck.
I don't know what else to say, man. I talked to you about it last time, man. We got to change something in baseball because and I'll be coming out with a video about Tommy John because I did a continuing education this past year on the UCL, and it was from the PT of the Seattle Mariners at the time, and and he's kind of very much on my stance. He's like, something's got to give. Like these guys can't keep throwing 100, 102 miles an hour, and then blowing their arms out every couple of years and being done at 6, 7 years in. And that's kind of the rate that we're going on right now.
6-7.
It's not good. I mean, Schwallenbach, he wasn't even a pitcher for most of his time in college, right?
He was a closer.
He was a closer. And he comes in, he's been in the Braves org, 2, 3 years now? And he's having elbow issues already? That's not good, man. Same with A.J. Smith-Shawver. He really didn't start pitching until what, 19, 20 years old? He was a football player mainly.
I've got my post if you want me to read it. I've got it
already out on X.
No. I've got the post that I already posted the other day queued up right now in the chamber. If you want me to read it.
Oh, so you haven't released it yet?
No. Basically, me talking about the pitchers that Atlanta has had. So when I posted this, okay. Atlanta has drafted and kind of brought these guys up through the system, and they've continued to draft pitchers, which obviously pitching is a premium. I don't know. Something needs to be shaken up either in the minor league system with scouting and directing, with the who oversees the minor league pitching department, something needs to be shaken up because I'm excluding the guys who have been drafted since 23, I believe. So I didn't add Waldrep, I didn't add Richie, I didn't add Caminetti, I didn't add all of those guys because we still have to wait and see. But since like 2018, this is your list of guys who have been drafted in this org, developed, and were sold to us as like pretty legit, decent starting pitchers. You've had Kyle Muller, Joey Wentz, Bryce Wilson, Tucker Davidson, Colby Allard, Lucas Sims, Jared Schuster, Darius Vines, Ian Anderson, Mike Soroka, Kyle Wright, Spencer Strider, Spencer Schwellenbach, AJ Smith-Shawver, Dylan Dodd, Bryce Elder, and this also isn't taking like Tuki Toussaint, Huskar Inoa, and Luis Gohara, who had Linsanity runs, which I get that,
Yeah.
But you've had quite a pretty damn good success rate on hitting prospects, position player guys. I guess from me, you probably could give me a better answer. Why would you not just stick to your strength and trade those guys? Like, obviously not trade O'Reilly, but if you developed a 4-tool shortstop, why would you not keep him and trade him when you had Dansby for a starter? Or vice versa, whatever.
I would like just to point out the going rate for starting pitching.
Yes. But that's why I said, keep developing these position players and just trade them for when you need pitching. I'm not saying completely, cut off drafting pitchers, never draft another pitcher.
No, I get what you're saying,
could
but
sprinkle in a guy, you can take not a flyer in the draft, but, a decently scouted prospect. But, those guys on that list were sold to us as, and this was when Atlanta had a damn good farm system. They were, top 10. Those guys were sold to us as these guys are your next rotation.
I want you to understand this, Jeb. For every top 50 prospects that you're going to have, 10 of them are going to make it. If 10.
Yeah.
Out of the top 10 that we have right now, you might have just one that comes up and makes it at all.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if it's just pitching or hitting. Drake Baldwin, I think, was in one draft. What about the rest of the position players that were drafted, right? Michael Harris was in one draft. What happened to the rest?
He was in the same draft as Strider, too.
Okay, so you got two guys. Two guys out of a draft is pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't think anything's wrong with this, with the scouting and the developing. I think that, just pure injury-wise, this is a much deeper problem than just the Braves organization. Right now, it's very prevalent with the Atlanta Braves. I don't think there's any question about it with the elbow injuries, but something's got to change in Major League Baseball.
So, the pitchers that were affected by injury from this list that had pretty good rotation potential, you had Kyle Wright, Soroka. I threw Strider, Schwelly, Smith-Shawver on that list because
they're elbows.
They've been injured. What, less than 2 years coming up to the bigs? 3 years coming up to the bigs?
Haven't even hardly pitched their whole lives.
Correct. And I saw somebody say to throw Ian Anderson on there. I don't agree because I think Ian's ceiling was a very, very low 3, high 4. I think we were basically sold on the idea that our rotation was going to be Soroka, Fried, probably Anderson as your 3, and then you had who was it in 2018? Kyle Wright. So then Kyle Wright is your 3, Ian is your 4, and then a mix of Bryce Wilson, Colby Allard, maybe Elder, Toussaint, Sims, Allard.
But you've also had Strider, Schwelly, and all them come through too. So
that was a little later, but
no doubt,
kind of in the same time. Yeah.
Yes. So they've done a really good job of developing. What's the theme here? Now look, throw Mike Soroka out the window. Unfortunately, that was just a freak fucking accident with the Achilles.
That's why I put him in Wright, Strider, Schwelly, and Smith-Shawver because,
But you can throw Ian in there.
You could.
You can throw Kyle Wright in there. He fucked his shoulder up.
I think Kyle kind of stands out because he didn't tell anybody, though. Soroka, that's a freak fucking injury. Like,
It is.
like me bitching in this tweet has nothing to do with Soroka. You cannot do that. I mean, he tore his Achilles and then retore it again.
Twice.
Like,
yeah. It's the arm injuries, man. Like, what are we doing at the minor leagues are we not protecting these guys? And I'm not saying, like, not throwing or throwing less. Throwing less isn't going to be the problem. Throwing the ball fucking properly is the problem. And I don't know if there's been a whole lot of studies done on proper pitching mechanics to limit the amount of a UCL possibility of tearing, but at some point something's got to change. You're teaching mechanics now that's kind of been proven over the years that are just not sustainable. It's just not. Schwellenbach, a new pitcher, if you will. He has not been pitching very long. Already's got elbow problems. Strider, I'll give you because he had, I think, a Tommy John in college, but he had to have another elbow surgery. AJ Smith-Shawver has not pitched but he's been pitching maybe 3 years? Injury,
3
elbow.
or 4, yeah, I mean.
Kyle Wright had a shoulder injury. Like, at some point, we got to look deep internally, like, what are we doing? Why are all our guys getting hurt? And it's not guys that we're bringing in. It's guys that we're drafting and developing and bringing up that are getting injured. So that's on y'all as an organization. Like, you need to hold yourselves accountable for that and try to figure it the fuck out. Like, at this point, it's unacceptable for this amount of pitchers to go down that you have homegrown. It's not acceptable. You got to do some internal digging. You got to. And there are studies out there. I'm sure a freaking Major League Baseball team could pull in some resource and for them to analyze these guys of why they got hurt. There's no doubt in my mind they could.
I mean, but then you got to look like it's the age-old question. Like, would you rather hit 2 homers today or a home run today and a home run tomorrow? You know, so I think the crop they have now is better quality, but obviously you look at I'm talking in the minors, like your Lucas Braun, your Blake Burkholter, your J.R. Ritchies, your Cam Caminettis.
Are y'all teaching them enough proper mechanics and how to care for themselves to not come up into the major leagues a year from now and blow out their fucking UCL again?
Yep. Yeah.
That's the problem.
But I think the quality is better. Like, but I listed, 5 guys? This is a list of, 15 pitchers that have seen pretty somewhat substantial major league time at some point in their career? Like, so it's the age-old question of, do you want quality or quantity? Preferably, you kind of want quality because you kind of want those guys you can count on. That's where a Bryce Elder comes in. That's where a Joey Wentz comes in, where it's like you got your up and down guys. That's where I guess a Darius Vines could come in, where it's like we need somebody to shit down their leg and just get us to tomorrow, you know? But
both sides are important, but
correct.
Man, it's just the rate of the UCL injuries in Major League Baseball just pissed me off. And it's just like nobody does anything about it. And they're just pulling these kids up one after another and just blowing their arms out, and then they're done.
That's why I said that I think calling up Fuentes, and I mean, granted, Smith-Shawver had very good stats as a reliever. That's great. If you would have left him as a reliever and then slid him into the rotation or made him have a rotation spot, that would have been fine. But they kept him up and down. And look at Fuentes and look at Waldrep. Like, these guys have like 1 or 2. Well, Fuentes has 2, but like Waldrep has 1. Smith-Shawver has 1. It's kind of like what I said last time on the pod. Like, sometimes bringing these guys up and rushing them to the major leagues is not the move.
I don't think that has anything
Especially
to do
with how much, like, peaks and valleys that they've had, too. Like, it's different when you're a hitter and you have peaks and valleys. You play every day. When you're a pitcher and you have peaks and valleys, that affects you a lot.
Yeah, but the reason why they're having to bring these guys up is because of the injury problem right now within the organization. So
I still think something needs to change organizational-wise, because that's the second guy that's went down in this org this spring training with UCL.
That's
Not to mention what Grant Holmes had last year.
Now, to be fair, Grant could have very easily had that tear for years, and it really just kind of resurfaced. Because people, I guarantee you, if you did an MRI of every pitcher in Major League Baseball, you're going to come back with 75 to 85% of them having some tear in their UCL. It's just non-symptomatic. You don't have any pain. And you'd probably see just as many loose bodies and elbows. They're just not symptomatic. But at some point when your organization is staring down, what is this now, 3 seasons of injuries and 2 seasons where your pitchers are constantly getting injured, and I'll throw Chris Sale out because that was a freak injury that he just dove on the ground and broke his rib. But we're talking UCL, elbow, UCL,
shoulder,
elbow, UCL, every single time. It's not plantar fasciitis. It's not a little shoulder impingement. It's not a teres strain. It's a freaking elbow or UCL every single time. Something in the organization needs to be evaluated in order to help this situation.
I'll bring up that tweet that I mentioned earlier when we were off air. It was a burner. Don't know if you can trust it or not, but said he was apparently close friends with Cole Phillips and said that the Braves org is very, very friendly at keeping guys going, and rushing them, which we know by how they've rushed up so many young pitchers, but how does that look in the minors? And Cole Phillips, I believe he's the same age as me, like 22, 23, and he's had 2 or 3 Tommy Johns already.
Yep.
Like, I think he had a Tommy John, began a throwing plan, and then had another Tommy John.
If that's the case, that's fucking pathetic on the organization, man. Sorry for whoever doesn't like cussing, but that's fucking ridiculous if that happened. If that happened. It's bad. And it's a bad look on the training staff. Like, real bad look. It's an epidemic in baseball that needs to shift, and I know people don't like to hear it, but it's not sustainable for a human being to be throwing 102 miles an hour. And I am coming out with a video on this very subject about the UCL probably in the next few days to really dive into it. So keep y'all's eyes out for that.
Another thing too, I guess we can touch on it with the Bassett thing. Like, I don't think you realize how fucking mad I'm going to be if they sign Lucas Giolito for quite literally pennies more than they could have had for Chris Bassett. And granted, Brady made a good point. Like, maybe he wanted to pitch in Baltimore. Maybe he didn't want to come to Atlanta. The path to the World Series, it's 10 times easier, in my opinion, in the American League. It is.
For sure. But for whoever really wants Lucas Giolito, go look at his font page.
It's the same as Bryce Elder's.
Legit the same. So if you're thinking Giolito is going to be any better than Bryce Elder, you're in for a very rude awakening, unfortunately.
I would much rather have Patrick Corbin than Lucas Giolito. I would have much rather had Jose Quintana than Lucas Giolito.
I was agreeing with you. You didn't like my crap on Lucas Giolito early on, but now you're coming around to it.
Well, I think at the time you have Schwelly, you have Strider, you have all of these guys. Lucas slides into that 5 spot, and you throw Elder in the pen, I guess. Like, it's fine, but when he's going to come in and basically be your everyday number 4 or 3, you're fucked. That's why I think Corbin makes too much sense.
You know who really makes way too much sense that nobody has signed?
Zach Greinke.
Zach Littell.
Okay, yeah, we can talk on that because Zach Littell...
How he does
not have a job right now, even if it's with the Rockies, is mind-boggling.
I'm just going to read off his last 2 years. In 2024, he had a 1.25 WHIP, 156 innings pitched, and keep in mind he was kind of bouncing back and forth between starting and relieving. Had a 3.63 ERA. 141 strikeouts. Last year, a 1.1 whip, 186 innings pitched. He started 32 games. He had a 3.81 ERA. I don't have FIP or any of that pulled up, so I'm just giving you what I got.
Hasn't he pitched like 150 plus innings like 3 of the past 4 years or 4 out of the past 5 years or something crazy like that too? Like he's
2 out of the last 3.
It's been 150 plus.
Plus, yeah. And he's been a sub 4 ERA.
Yeah, I mean that would make
Why would
absolutely
you not want that? That's a solid number 4.
That would make absolutely way too much
Grant
sense.
Back to the bullpen to help your bullpen.
Yes, because and I love Grant. Okay, so are you on BREF or Savant?
I was on Savant.
Okay, so it's been in 24. It was okay. Never mind.
His Savant page isn't bad either.
Yeah,
Like it's not great, but it's not bad.
He threw 156 and a third in 24, 186 and 2/3 in 25.
Yeah.
He
was a reliever too for a good bit.
Yeah, No, he threw 90. I'm sorry, he threw 90 innings in 2023 combined.
But he only started 14 of those games.
Yeah. It just makes too much sense, but
He's
I guarantee
only 30.
I guarantee I know why he isn't signed. Okay.
Why?
I'm gonna paint a picture for you. I'm gonna paint it like Bob Ross.
Paint it then.
How many moves have the Braves made since FanDuel pulled the rug on the TV deal?
I don't give a Dude, this organization makes more money than that. And they're coming up with their own TV deal anyway.
It's getting really close to like opening day where this TV deal has to get done and gone through. They've got to get sponsorships. They've got to get, I'm going to guess that they're going to just use all the people that they have already, Brandon, CJ, all the people and equipment behind that. But you got to get sponsorships. You've got to get local TV deals. You've got to get TV packages. You've got to get, I guess, an app developed and programmed.
All they got to do is get their own freaking streaming app.
I know.
You don't even need a TV service. You don't need to get if they want to reach out and add it, but you can literally just stream it yourself.
You have got to make it available to your older fan base too.
Brother, they can download an app.
No.
They can.
You tell me the 80 and 90-year-olds who are sitting at home watching TV.
Family that is younger, yes, they can.
They are not going to want to do that. They are not.
The Joyous of Ben Ingram on the radio. Do you understand?
That's ageism right there. Ryan is ageist.
Just saying, Chad.
For all of you who want to call him out on the Bird app. But literally, if you look at it, since FanDuel has pulled the rug, and I had a great conversation with an individual the other day about this, the only signing that they have made since FanDuel basically said bye was Jonah Heim. It's the only signing they've had since FanDuel has officially pulled out.
Yeah, dude, I get it.
And in theory, it makes no sense because you've ran it out with Baldwin and Tromp before. Why would you get a third? Granted, I like the signing. It was fine. You didn't need another catcher. You needed a starting pitcher.
If you only had $820,000 spent, you're not going to get a starting pitcher anyway.
I mean, I agree, but what did German Marquez sign for?
You wouldn't want German Marquez.
As like a guy in AAA that you could bring up, like a Carrasco and a Martin Perez.
Have 2 of those.
You need more.
No, we need Zach Littell. And let me tell you, if they're in discussions with Giolito, they have some money to spend.
I don't think they are.
I agree with you. I was very much on like, okay, well, we got starting pitching depth. I can see that the starting pitching isn't a need. Well, when you have 2 of your guys go down, your starting pitching depth has dwindled that much already. You kind of need to go sign a dude like this who has been durable, thrown 150-plus innings, and has been a pretty damn good starting pitcher for the last 2 years. This is the guy they need to hop on.
Damn, they don't have the Herman Marquez cash.
I don't.
I'm gonna guess it's probably in the somewhere from like the $6 to $10 million range. It's got a club option for 2 years, so another one, Griffin Canning. That would have been a great.
He's injured.
Like, no, he's not. He's rehabbing, but
He's injured. We have enough
somebody-
hurt boys.
the Royals just signed John Means to a 2-year minor league deal. So I'm assuming that he's getting paid league minimum or like minor league-ish money.
Probably.
And then,
He's probably getting paid minor. Well, he's on the 40-man, so he's making decent money.
He's injured. That's why it was a 2-year deal, because he's injured. Because he just tore his Achilles throwing in front of teams.
Jesus.
So I think a deal like that for Griffin Canning would have been perfect. Because he's got like good stuff, and I think he gets like a decent amount of whiffs too. I don't know.
Yeah, but here we are. We haven't even started spring training games yet, and we are already down 2 starting pitchers. And a catcher. And a shortstop.
It makes me actually look like a dumbass now that I said that AA was going to go with his depth as like the rotation instead of signing somebody. It makes me look like an asshole now because all your depth keeps getting injured. So now he's going to have to go and sign somebody.
But here's what people I think need to understand is if you keep having injuries at this rate, there's not a damn thing your organization can do to cover it all. There's just not. You can't. There's not going to be 5 Chris Sales out on the free agent market that you can go sign to replace these guys. There's just not, and you don't have enough minor league prospect capital to go out and just make deals left and right to replace them. So, unfortunately, the only team that can have 2 full rotations ready to go is the Los Angeles Dodgers. Unfortunately. But if this keeps up, the Braves are going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
But right now, they definitely need to go sign a Zach Littell-esque pitcher.
They won't, but
I 100% agree with you. If I'm a betting man, I'm going to bet my entire life savings and the house that I'm in right now that AA won't add a starting pitcher.
But hey, look, they've been in serious talks. Money's not an issue, and they're always on the lookout.
Money is clearly a fucking issue if you can't go sign Zach Littell right now when it's February 15th. Here's a problem.
I get it.
There.
I get it. AA is trying to save face, and I get
face, brother. I get
he's trying to kiss ass, but you cannot keep telling this fan base the same line over and over and over and over and not act on it.
I'll be honest with you, Jeb. If by some chance we ever do get him on here and he pulls some bullshit like that, I'm literally going to look at him and say, AA, stop with the bullshit. Just answer the fucking question, honestly, because we know you're capping right now.
We would hold his feet to the fire.
I do. Look, you can sue me. You can walk out of this podcast right now, but I'm not having that bullshit on my podcast.
I think the radio guys do an okay job. I think they
have a deal, and they have to finagle it within those linings of that deal.
Yeah.
If I'm getting AA on here, I'm not signing the damn deal. I'm going to ask what the fuck I want to ask.
Like, I think I remember watching or listening vividly last year. Like, there were some like softball questions or some like your normal fan is like, okay, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, one of the questions was to sign if he was in on Alex Bregman and put Riley in left field, and it's like, okay, obviously that's not gonna happen. But like, I don't know, man.
This right here, this would be if I pulled him on the podcast right now. I'm like, what is stopping you from getting Zach Littell? Because it's something. It's not like he has a ton of suitors out there right now, because I'm pretty sure he would have signed a contract right now if he did.
And maybe it's one of those things where, you know, as much shit as I talk, I know he's got the top-ish of the line analytical guys in there, and maybe it's a thing where his stuff doesn't fit Truist, but it's like there have been some moves where it's like, why?
A 4.3 ERA. That's worth it.
I mean, granted, like, I trust a lot of GMs that they know what they're doing for betterment of the team, they know what to do. Like, I get it. But then there's been times where a GM has done something like the Rafael Devers trade, and it's like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? And I get, like, canceling the clubhouse, whatever, but it's like...
That was a horrible trade.
That trade, that package, that timing, and everything
and
was
they already
just
sent
absolutely...
Kyle Harrison out.
They have one remaining prospect from that deal. Everybody else has been dealt.
That is horrible.
Yeah.
Glad I'm not a Red Sox fan. Tell your brother my condolences to his dog shit team.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would also have a safe word for AA if it was Terry's fault. I would just tell him to fucking wink before we go on air. And when he does that, I would just nod and say, okay, Chad, it's fucking Terry's fault.
And did you see his geriatric ass out there on the field today?
Terry?
Yeah.
Somebody go fucking... I'm not going to say that on live air right here. I'm joking, Chad. I'm joking. Nobody go hurt Terry. That's not cool. Terry, just spend your money, bro. You're going to make it back.
It pisses me off, too, because it's like, you have so much money coming off the books next year. I believe...
1 year, $13 million for Zach Littell. You can't do that, Terry. You're going to look at me and tell me that you can't do that?
You have Sale, you have Kim, you have Bummer, you have Jimenez.
You better bring Sale back at this point.
Yep. You have Iglesias. You have, I believe Ronaldo's coming off the books next year, too.
Ooh, we are in trouble after this year, chat. And there's a lockout, and you're not going to have hardly an offseason to work in with? Oof, we're going to be in trouble next year.
And player option or club option for Ozzy, depending on if they want to pick that up. I think they should. I think it's the best value bang for your buck for a second baseman, and the fan base loves him. Think you could fill other more important needs.
Yeah, like your starting rotation, because you're going to be out Sale and Lopez after this year.
Luckily, the Murphy contract ends, I believe, when Baldwin hits ARB. So
I think Sean's got options, so the options are going to get. Can we talk about that?
It's a club option. Atlanta doesn't give player options.
No, yeah, I know. So they have the right,
and they'll turn that shit down
for Sean Murphy. And I'm not saying I dislike Sean. I do. Been a Sean Murphy believer. I think if he's healthy and he's putting up numbers, you trade him.
Yeah, I agree. Jonah Heim, Sandy Leone, Chadwick Tromp could be just as valuable as Sean Murphy as a backup.
Especially if Drake Baldwin is doing this again for a second year in a row. If Sean Murphy's healthy, you got to get some money off the books again and some prospect capital back and get him out.
Yep.
Because I'll be honest with you, with that torn hip labrum, high re-tear rates, all I'm going to say, chat. There's a high re-tear rate with shoulder labrums, any labrum, there's high re-tear rates, unfortunately. And then the success rate of them getting back the second time is under 70%. So get him out. Which sucks. I don't like saying that, but if I'm a GM, that's how I'm looking at that.
Is there anything else you want to cover?
We talked about the rotation. I guess we'll do a spring training preview, next weekend.
Yeah, we can do that. That'll be next Sunday. So, yeah, makes sense. But, all right. With that being said, we're going to get out of here. Hopefully y'all enjoyed this episode. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, all of that fun stuff. It really helps us out. We really appreciate it. Share it with your friends. I know you've got Braves friends out there who like a little bit of banter. And kind of like a...
Some don't.
Yeah, some don't. Some don't like the fans' point of view, which is fine. You know, we could sit here and tell you a bunch of stats and log off, but we don't. So, just call us the redheaded stepchild at that point. Anyways, we'll end it here. Ryan, you're trash.
Landed right on the shoulder.
Hawk tour.
Let's do it again.